Do you ever feel like you have enough time? It's interesting, in some of the teachings we have, we joke about how it would be helpful if we could have someone else eat and sleep for us. That way we could use that time to do better things or more important things. And recently a guest who was here for a few days said that they were surprised. They were surprised about what monastic life actually looked like, because they weren't expecting it to be so busy in terms of how much service we do here. And throughout the course of our day, sometimes I do hear myself and others say that, we're so busy here, or there's no time to do this. And so I've been thinking a little bit about time and how we use it. And as many of you know, I lived in New Zealand for a while, and I went to Otago University that was there in a small town called Dunedin. And they have a very good peace studies program there that many of my friends went to. And one of the stories that came up in one of their classes about aid work has stuck with me. And this is vague, but I've got the point, so I'll share that. But there was a story about how some aid workers in Africa were there, and there was this sense of they're offering and they're doing a lot of really intense work, and they felt that they didn't have any time to take care of themselves. In terms of they're giving, but not necessarily taking the time to care to feel resourced themselves. But then they looked at, well, what are we doing? How are we connecting about this complaining that we're doing? And then they looked actually at how they were using their time and when they would meet to debrief with each other. And when they really looked at how they were using their time, there were all these pockets of connection where they were complaining about how they didn't have enough time to take care of themselves. But they could have been using that time to take care of themselves, or use that time to rejoice at what they were doing, or to nourish themselves as opposed to complaining. Something like that. But it stuck with me and with my friends who I was discussing this with, in terms of it really matters about our perspective about how we're using our time. And if we tell ourselves we don't have enough time, or we tell ourselves we're too busy, we create this sense of loss or lack in ourselves that might not even be true, but it generates a certain mindset that isn't so helpful and can make us unhappy. Yeah. And so coming up to a death and dying retreat, often in the context of meditation on death, we do look at how are we using our time. What is most important? What are we prioritizing in this life that is quite short, and every moment we are progressing closer and closer to death? And I can't remember what teaching it was recently, but Venerable Trudon gave a good example of how a lot of our time can be spent just making ourselves comfortable. I need a drink. When I'm there, I may as well get myself something to eat. And I need to do this, and then this, and then this, and just making ourselves more and more comfortable, and just using our time for sense pleasure in this life. And how easy one thing bleeds into the next, and then half an hour later, what was I doing? Futzing with making myself comfortable. And I remember once too, one of my teachers in New Zealand said that, in the morning, plan out your day. Have an idea of what you're going to do from one thing to the next. Because even if it doesn't happen, and most often it won't, at least then you know what your priorities are. And when things change, and some time opens up, you'll know how to virtuously use your time, as opposed to, I don't know what to do with myself, and then half an hour later you're at the snack counter not sure what you're doing. But to make sure that there's no wasted time, not in terms of making ourselves busy, but in terms of using our life for virtue and benefit. And again, I don't necessarily always do that, but it stuck with me in terms of this conscientiousness about using this life well, to be of benefit, and to keep our minds happy. And during the winter retreat, looking at the 4 establishments of mindfulness as well. In Bhikkhu Analayo's guide to the Satipatthana Sutra, there was this passage on time that really caught my attention. It's short, so I'll read it and reflect. And this is the context of looking at impermanence. Time is in a way our conceptualization of change. Past, present, and future are what has changed, what is changing, and what will change. Measuring time in units, however useful it can be, can at times come with an underlying nuance of attempting to control change. Yet in the end, we invariably find that change is outside of our control. In this way, we end up being controlled by our own conceptualizations of time. Time becomes what we never seem to have enough of. Always under time pressure, always under stress. We keep having no time. Simply becoming aware of change, of the process character of all our experiences, helps to counter this tendency. It undermines our unconscious attempt to control change, and it frees us from taking time too seriously. This makes us less vulnerable to time-related stress. I quite like this phrase of not taking time too seriously. But what does that mean? And what came to mind in reflecting on this was, again, some stories that Venerable Chödrön was sharing about Lama Zopa Rinpoche's life and his relationship to time. And this, again, in terms of what's most important. Is it, getting to the airport on time? No. It's or getting to lunch on time? No. A 15-minute car ride might take an hour or more because Lama Zopa would stop when he saw roadkill and spend however long it takes to do a ritual and bless it so that there'd be some karmic connection there and that the animal would have a fortunate rebirth. That was more important than making it to time to the airport or to lunch. Or is it important to have a hot lunch? No. We can spend an hour and a half blessing our food because that's more important, that we create the merit necessary to make use of this precious human life. Does it matter that others are irritated either that the food is cold? No. It's important that, he was teaching his students in real time that bodhicitta is more important. Or is starting teachings on time the most important thing? No. 4 hours later, because he was benefiting sentient beings, he'd come late and start teaching at 11 instead of 7 p.m. Does it matter that people were tired? No. Falling asleep? No. An hour long to do the dedication prayers. Is that how this Abbey is run? No. But we still, we use our time very well in another way. This, not taking time too seriously in terms of holding rigidly to things just because, but really having a sense of purpose and meaning behind how we are using our time to be of benefit. And then also the idea of that change is outside of our control. We can't stop aging, death, sickness, disintegration of other objects in addition to our own body. We can change how we respond. We can, we do have control over, or we can train ourselves to have increasing control over, is our response to change. I know during many motivations during the winter retreat, people were talking about, trying to just let go of this grasping to control, this grasping at the body or at permanence. The idea though of let go is that we had the ability to hold on to something in the first place. So then this idea, reflection led me to the idea that it's letting go of our expectations. Because as we've been taught, we're in constant free fall anyway. It's just acknowledging it. We're not holding on to anything anyway. There is, this constant moment by moment change. There's nothing to hold on to. So the letting go is of our expectations that we can control what unfolds that is dependent on so many parts and conditions that, we're only have influence over a small portion of that. So I thought to just share this brief reflection as we enter into this retreat on death and dying, for looking at our own mortality and impermanence and that of others that we love as well. And to reflect on how we are using our time in this brief life, however long we have left, so that we use our time well, in the sense of not getting caught up in things that don't really matter at the end of the day, but using our life to be of benefit, to do no harm, and to explore more and more how we can look beyond just this life. And of course, the ultimate goal of attaining Buddhahood, to be of benefit to all beings. Yes?
So about earlier last week, you sent me the retreat schedule for the Memorial Day retreat, which won't happen. I think I got it on May 1st, and the retreat is the last weekend in May. And I was asked to approve the schedule. So what was that about?
Because the PR team in the office requested that the schedule can go online for people to have an idea of what they're coming to a month in advance.
Yeah, but it doesn't fit with what you just said about not getting stressed, because they're going to get stressed out. They aren't arriving on time, and
no, we put up something that we can hold lightly, and people have an idea of what they can come to, and it will change, and then we'll change it.
I should record that, because when we do the debriefing, that's not what I hear. Oh, you have such a nice, innocent smile.